Hey, hey,
Cesar, welcome to another
estamos al
week.
aire.
Estamos en en live.
Al aire.
Oh, I thought you said en live. I'm like, is that some like Spanglish thing? En
No, no, no.
vivo? No.
En vivo o al aire. You say like on air, like radio, al
Okay,
aire, I guess.
not en vivo.
En vivo is probably a concert.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, yeah, right, right. Yeah,
Live. I guess it applies for both. How you been, man?
yeah, not too bad. Just busy working, doing the fish brain thing. It's been fun. All this product stuff we're working on. So
I
busy.
know. I see in your hat you have a marlin, and then in the back you have a new
Oh man, I'm
marlin
representing two Marlins.
frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this painting is awesome. There's a guy, he's famous down here. A lot of people might not know him, but in this area of the country, there's a painter from the Cayman Islands called Guy Harvey, and we love him. We love all his stuff. And so we were down in Fort Lauderdale, and I walked into his store, his art gallery, and they had this, but they had it printed on aluminum, and then they had the original, which was a lot of money there. And it's like there was loss of definition on it. And so my wife was like, "Hey, we like this, but we don't like it on aluminum. Can you do it on canvas?" And they're like, "Oh, we got to talk to the artist and Guy Harvey, blah 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 blah." And we're like, "Okay, go do that." And so, long story short, they put it on canvas, and then we talked them into put them in on this wooden black frame, and we went into the store to pick it up, and he was there. He just like happened. He's from the Caymans, but he just happened to be in Fort Lauderdale, and he showed up with his easel and his canvas. He's like, "Hey, mind if I camp out here for the day?" So we got him to sign it, and this is the first one. They liked it so much they're going to start selling them in a black frame from now on. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so we got the first one, got it signed, pretty cool. But I love it. I think it makes the room look great.
Yeah. Very fishy.
Yes, it is.
Very Florida. I have Ted Lasso. We're
Okay, that
here.
works. Did you
Yeah.
just rotate Apple TV Plus shows there?
No, that's probably the only one that I have. I have a Chalk Mandalorian over there, and that's about it. I think those are my good two shows that I like to have around.
Fair enough. All right,
So,
cool.
all right. So today, this week has been busy, man. We have a few things to talk about, and some things that we're planning to do some friction logs about it. The first one is Turbo Repo. How do you
Yeah,
describe it?
yeah. So Turbo Repo, we want to do a friction log on it, just haven't to yet, but it's worth mentioning. So Turbo Repo was, I think, bought by Vercel. I don't know what that means though, because I think it was an open source project, so I don't know what that means. But anyway, it's under the Vercel umbrella now, and it's a monorepo system that does all sorts of things, hashing of builds and like everything that you would expect a monorepo to have.
Mhm.
It like helps with that part of it, and then it's like native integration with Vercel. It just kind of works. So it looks cool. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but that's definitely something we want to try and do on a friction log. I,
Yeah.
I think I think some of these ones that we want to do all kind of relate to each other because you're working on open sourcing our website, and then
Yes, I am.
and while you're doing that, we can actually go through Turbo Repo, go through Repo Beats, go through Code Sandbox projects, which was just announced what last week or something.
Yeah, it's still in beta. So, yeah,
Is
those
it
are
a
the three.
is it a special invite you have to have for the beta or
I'm
open
not
beta?
sure. It says just sign in early access. I don't know. I guess we
Okay.
gotta try it out at some point.
Well, we can ping them to get it. Say, hey, we're gonna do a friction log on it.
Yeah. So we have code sandbox projects, which we keep getting more and more of. Just trying to set up IDEs on the web, like the entire stack on the web, which I mean, it sounds cool. Like I imagine myself in a like somewhere and I need to go and do a code change, but then I always have my laptop with me. So
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. It's hard to imagine not using VS Code or something,
hmm.
but they're cool. These projects are cool, and it seems like maybe 2 years ago, um, there was this huge influx of everybody wanted to do this, and everybody had their own solution. And um, yeah, so
And,
it'll be interesting to see how Code Sandbox handles it.
yeah, and we talk about it, right? Because we were thinking about, I think it
Mhm.
was triggered by the iPad Pro, right? Everybody
Yeah.
thought like, okay, this is what we need to actually go and do it. Well, it hasn't happened yet.
Mm.
Um, I was reading the other day, there are starting to be some applications built on Swift playgrounds out of the iPad, but they are very basic still. So I don't
Right.
know where that's going to be. But even some of the interactions with Safari, even with the cursor and the keyboard, it just, I don't know, it's not quite there yet. At least not for me. We'll
Right.
see.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Um, and then Repo Beats. What is Repo Beats? It's
Repo Beats is this cool little like analytic thing for your repo. But they're just pretty charts that you can embed. You know how like a lot of readmes have like a chart or two or whatever, but this is like next level. So
This is
definitely
like
want to try it.
somebody, I'm looking at it. Somebody took whatever values are available out of the GitHub API and just make charts out of it, right? Number of issues and pull requests and the
Hmm.
frequency and some of
Hmm.
that, and made it pretty because you can
Yep.
definitely make ugly charts. Um,
That's so true.
so and it has that little the square dots of which it goes on theme with your GitHub profile, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
It seems like it fits there. It's just
Yep.
nice. So we are those are the three ones, but we haven't gotten to a lot of friction logs lately. But I do have some first impressions on the Apple Studio Display that I got last week. I
Yeah,
think
let's
2
talk
weeks
about that
ago.
because the last podcast we were talking about it from, ignorance, but now you got one, and I canceled mine, like
Yeah.
I mentioned last time. So, um, which I still almost bought one, by the way, even after I canceled it. It shows you how ridiculous I am. So yeah, I'm really curious to hear what your first impressions are. Like, what do you think? There's probably a bunch of different categories. Every review I've watched is a bunch of different categories. So what about? Let's just talk about the display first. First, wait. Do you have a MacBook Pro, the new one, the 16
Yes.
inch or the? Okay,
It
good.
is the 14-inch. So
14-inch. Okay, but you have
yeah.
the ProMotion and the new. Okay, good. So that's helpful because I wanted to ask you that contrast. So let's talk about the panel. Um, so some people are complaining it's like what, a 4 or 5 year panel, and it's not like the new MacBook Pro. So what are your impressions on that?
For everything that I can tell you, it's still the same panel that iMac 5K used to have from like 4 or 5 years ago. So it is exactly the same thing. I didn't have a 5K iMac, but I've seen them multiple times and used them, and it is pretty much the same thing, right? So it's not new, but it still looks way better than any other monitor that I have had.
Okay, that's good to
So
know. That's
it
cool.
is.
So compared to what other monitors do you have right now?
I have rotated. I always come back to it is a Dell U2717D, which is a 1440 non-retina uh, Dell monitor, one of
Okay,
the
so you
ultra
jump from
fine.
non-retina to retina scaled. So okay, so that helps. What about compared to your MacBook monitor or screen?
ProMotion, I'm having a hard time trying to see it. Like sometimes when I'm scrolling, definitely the text refresh faster and I can read a little bit more. Where typical 60 hertz screens they take a little bit to render, but I'm not that picky on that.
Hmm.
I do notice a big difference between the three on the blacks. So I think the Dell has, I don't know, 100 nits or something like that, where the Studio Display has 600, and then the MacBook has like 1500 or 1300 or something like that. So it's way more.
Yeah,
So the blacks do look better than my Dell, but not as good as the MacBook Pro. That is noticeable. Now, because I
makes
have
sense.
them side by side,
Right.
right now I have my MacBook in clamshell mode, so
Hmm.
it's up there. So I only have two screens, and the 5K looks very very nice. Um, I guess somebody that comes from an iMac wouldn't notice a difference, and they will probably feel like they're getting ripped off just because it's the same panel. But in my case, it was an upgrade, so I do like it.
Right, right. Cool. Okay. That's good to know. So the blacks are better than I did wonder about that because that it's still a backlit kind of LED kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. One of these days you're gonna make an OLED one. That'll be awesome, but we're not there yet.
There is a mini LED, right? Just
Yeah.
$5,000.
Right, right. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
So it's not a reference monitor. The colors looks fine. I don't know. I'm quite happy with it.
So
With
what ab-
everything except the stand, though.
yeah, I was just about to ask you. So you didn't get the $400 extra stand thing, right? It's just the one that's built in.
Yes, I got the standard, the one that just moves back and forth, um, and it is noticeable shorter than my Dell. The Dell, I can bring it down and a little bit lower than that, but if I raise it, then it's definitely, I don't know, 4 inches. That is like 10 centimeters for the non-US listeners. So it is a considerable difference. I have enough distance with them that I don't really like, it doesn't hurt my back or anything, but I do want to raise them. I do like them a little bit more. So I'll probably find a shelf that raises it maybe like four and a
So
half
give me a
inches.
visual. Give me a visual. So where's the top of the screen at related to your eyes? I'm
So
just
if I
like,
sit here
yeah.
where everything seems, um, I am like 1 inch. My eyes are like 1 inch from the top of the monitor, so
Okay.
it
Okay.
is
And so you would
not.
like it higher, like above
Yeah.
your head, maybe is the top of the thing. Okay. That's
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah.
I will like, yeah, maybe like 4 inches. So I'll let you know whatever uh I end up buying. I actually leveled them, so I lowered the Dell one just so they can be at the same level because it was definitely weird to have the one on top of the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. That would drive me crazy too.
Yeah. So
OCD meters like pegged.
is it worth the 300, $400? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I will just raise it and then that'll be it.
Or you can buy a $400 book and then it's like the same thing.
Java, what was the Java book that I had? It was like this big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Java SC. I don't know. I have it somewhere. I already bought it.
It's funny. What about compared to your Dell? What's the like like, what are some things that you notice that are better or worse? Um
Everything is
yeah.
better in the studio display except the bezels. The bezels are twice as thick as the Dell one.
Hmm.
And again, this is a monitor from like, I don't know, 2017, 2018. So I get it. Like I get why they have a little bit larger bezels, and I get the depth of the monitor, but it just seems weird. Like your new monitor has larger bezels or thicker bezels
That's a
than
good point.
as
Yeah.
the other one.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
like
It
a
just
step
feels
back
weird.
or something on that. That's a really good point. Yeah. Because this
It's not a
LG I
problem.
got, it's interesting. This LG that I bought, there's almost no bezel, and the actual panel is outset, so it's like there's the bezel's like behind it.
Hmm.
It's interesting, yeah, but it's kind of a cool design technique. But yeah, that is weird that the bezel's bigger. It's eh.
If you only have one monitor, you're probably not gonna notice it. Just happens that I have the two of them side by side. So
Hmm.
um, outside of that, I mean, the vase is definitely smaller. The Dell does rotate. Um, I don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
you can spin it.
Right.
So right now that I have the two of them and they're kind of like facing to me, the base on the studio display, it is twisted a little bit, which is not bad. I don't have a problem with that. I actually, one of the things that I was curious is I have a PC here, and you were like reading all sorts of different results with the
Yeah.
connecting it to a PC.
Right. Right.
Um, After I got the right cable, which was my first purchase because I did my homework, which is a bi-directional DisplayPort to USB-C. um, it worked, and my PC can drive the 5K like nothing. I even play
That's good.
Halo on it, which I know you shouldn't, and you kind of like want to the high refresh rate as opposed to the larger pixels.
Right.
And my video card was definitely pushing it, but it played fine and it looks amazing.
At
So
what resolution did you play it at?
native.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the video card is like a 3080 Ti, which is
Oh,
like 12
goodness
gigs.
gracious. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
so
It was loud. It was very loud. The PC was definitely on with the fans and everything, but it worked and everything was fine.
wow, okay. That's kind of cool. Super
Yeah.
high res, man. All right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What about audio? I heard all the reviews I read, audio, everybody said it was the best audio they've heard out on monitor, which maybe is not the highest standard in the world, but like,
It is perfect for me. I used to have a couple of AirPods, which sorry, HomePods,
oh yeah, right.
which I like them in when you pair them as a stereo, the HomePod minis. Like you need two, and they work very well when you pair them as one stereo speaker. But they have delays, and
Yeah, right. The
iTunes is
latency.
horrible, or iTunes, whatever. The music app is horrible with them with AirPlay as itself. So other than that, I used to have big speakers. I don't care for them anymore. I don't listen
Hmm.
to that many music. So for me, these are perfect. Perfect. The entire room can be playing music, and it's loud and it's pretty good. So I have no complaints with it.
Cool. Okay. Good. What else? Anything else good, bad on it?
Uh, I haven't even used the camera. I have an Elgato, which is the one that I'm using. I think I turned it on like a couple of times. I read the reviews. I think I'm just gonna wait for whenever they fix the issue that it has with software.
Right.
I did get an update on the monitor over the weekend, so I apparently mine launched with not the 15.4 build, but like something a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to get a 600 megabyte update
For a monitor. Well, it's got an
for a
M1 chip
monitor.
on in it, doesn't it?
It's
Or
like
the
an
Biometry
A13 or yeah,
A13. Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, it's got a chip in there. It's a computer. And somewhere I read it's got 64 gigabytes of storage or something inside of
yeah.
it too.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yes.
That's
It's just weird because I have it through a Thunderbolt 4 dock, and it goes to my computer, and for some reason the update didn't work whenever I did it through there, so I had to plug in it directly to it, and then the Mac restarted, and then the monitor was updated. I don't know, it never think about updating your monitor before. That was a new thing. Which reminds me, I had an interesting experience. The M1 Max, the MacBook was fine. My work computer it's still an Intel MacBook. I think it's 2019 or 2020. And that one, it can drive up to two 5K displays, but only if you connect each monitor on each side. So you cannot plug them. It
oh.
has two ports on each side,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
curious. Hmm.
I try like because my setup just makes it easier to plug it in into the right side. I try them, and it's not even two 5Ks. It's like the Dell and the 5K, and one of them wouldn't turn on at all. I thought it was the cable. I did a bunch of switches, and then I found this weird support article about the ultra fine 5K display, the LG one,
Same problem.
um, where it mentioned like if like it can work, you just have to plug in one on each side. So that's a little bit annoying because it breaks my dock, like in a way, like
Yeah.
they cannot go through the dock. I
Right.
just have to plug it in on the other side. So I got to talk to my boss to get a new one. Hey, it's making me connect one more cable.
That's great.
But that's it. I mean, so far so good. Like I like the two monitor setup, like, but I don't like them to be different. If somebody gives me another studio display, the only thing that I will wish was to have imagine the speakers that they will they will synchronize or play music at the same time. That will be
Oh,
awesome. Other
that's
than
that's a
that,
curious. I never thought about that. Two monitors. How does that work? Because it does the spatial audio thing. So yeah,
mhm,
that's interesting. Hmm.
which one do you pick? So that's my first impressions. 2 weeks of use, 1 week and a half. So far, so good.
So should I go buy one?
Right now,
No, say no, Cesar. Say no.
come on,
Don't tempt me.
just buy
Stop it.
two.
Oh
Send me
yeah,
one.
yeah, right. Oh man. All right, let's get
Uh,
to our friction log. So our friction log today is on Podman, which it's really kind of funny that we're talking about Podman because, um, well, okay, so I was talking to my cousin Matt, and he was talking about Docker and how much Docker, all this memory it uses on his Mac, and it doesn't work, and you got to pay for it, and all this frustrating things. And I'm like, man, there's something, there's an alternative to this. Like, what is it? And I couldn't remember the name of
well,
it.
I have been playing with that alternative.
Awesome.
Um, Everything started when Docker.com, I guess, not Docker.org,
Right.
decided that the Docker desktop, the only way that you have to install Docker on Mac, was going to be a paid subscription if you were part of a non-small business, which is like 250 employees,
Mm.
uh, and less than $10 million in annual revenue, which my current employer is not. So um, so that was obviously they were negotiating, and I think I can go and purchase it through the company. So it's not like I'm blocked from that option. But people in my team, we started to experiment some of those, starting with Thomas, which I think we talk about the Twitter thread that you were
Hmm.
talking to him about that.
Right.
So I gave it a try. I had to build an application that I was going to deploy. So I was like, well, I might as well just go and try Podman. And I was surprised, frustrated, happy. I think I have one blocker out of my friction log, and I still have a couple of things to try. But overall, it is a replacement. It is so much as a replacement that my first delight was in the instructions that they have, you install it, and then you can just make an alias docker equals podman,
Nice.
and
So
then
it's all the same
just
CLI or API or whatever. That's really cool. Yeah.
you can just keep using your Docker commands. Which at the same time, at some point, got frustrating because I'm trying to learn the new thing, but then I still am using Docker commands. So for some things, I was using like Podman image lists or like Podman processes.
Mm.
But then my Docker build commands were already shortcuts in the projects that I was working on. So that was
Hmm.
using Docker. So it is an alias. It's just you're not quite outside of the Docker realm, and you're already in Podman. So, but that was my first delight, alias in your ZSH file, and that was it.
Yeah, that's good. That's real cool. Um, so all right, so let me ask a couple questions. So because I haven't used this yet. First question, how's the memory and the footprint of it and the boot up time? And because sometimes I wonder with the Docker Mac app, you turn it on and it's like, can it boot up any faster, please? Like, why is this taking so long? What's Podman like in that experience?
So Podman is they call it demonless. So
Demonless. That's great.
demonless. So it is um, performance wise, I think it's faster.
Hmm.
It does have a virtual machine, and you can select different drivers to run it. So there are a few quirks there. If you follow the instructions, it's a drop-in replacement to Docker. Once you get into more advanced stuff, then there are some differences. But so far, I haven't noticed something that I say, "Oh, this is making it slower." I did have to uninstall Docker Desktop, restart my computer, and then install Podman, and then everything started to work. You gotta initialize the machine. It's Podman machine init or Podman machine start, and then you can set up some properties that includes number of CPUs and number of
Mm-hmm.
memory, right? The gigs of memory that you're planning to allocate to the VM. So by default, I think it's very small to run things like Minikube, which is your mini Kubernetes cluster within your machine. So, and I'm going to get to that because that was a blocker. But overall, I have no complaints on performance. I think my work computer spins the fans more for the Apple Studio display than for compiling a bunch of Docker images.
Yeah, that's funny.
So,
Okay, that's interesting. That's cool. So,
yeah.
what about the UI? Does it have a UI like the Docker Mac app?
No, I think that could be a friction for some people. It's not for me because I always use Docker from the command
Mm-hmm.
line,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have a UI. It's just CLI, right? So um, it is a drop-in replacement. I don't have any other comments on that. It is good. There are two things that I known and have worked with Docker that I haven't. One is Docker Swarm. Um, which is not supported. So if whoever is watching this or listening to this, you use Docker Swarm, that is not supported, and they are not planning to do it because they believe that Kubernetes is the way that
Right.
you orchestrate containers.
Right. I mean,
Uh,
nobody really uses Swarm anymore, do they? I don't think I
I don't.
know. I don't know anybody anymore that uses it. Yeah.
Yeah, not here. So that's one. The other one, which is pretty good for like small things, like whenever you want to do a quick, I don't know, WordPress or something that needs a couple of containers. Docker Compose, which
Mm-hmm.
you build a YAML, right, and then
Yep.
you have a couple of containers running. There is a replacement called Podman Dash Compose, and I can drop the link on the show notes, but I haven't tried it yet. So I don't know if that works out of the box. It does follow the same spec, like an
Okay. So then
A3.
it should be just like the
So
other, just drop in replacement and run.
yeah.
Okay.
The
That's good.
the weird thing is I didn't see an alias, like in the documentation, I didn't see an alias for it. So I was like, oh, maybe there is something different here because
They could
Docker
just
equals
try it.
Podman.
Docker dash compose equals whatever the command is. Just see what it does.
And then we'll
What
see.
breaks?
So that's an interesting thing to try. Um, what else? Documentation. You wanna the documentation is different. It definitely feels um, Docker feels more like there's a ton of things to learn out of containers.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the Docker documentation here, and there's this all these options, and even for installation and stuff like that. Where Podman is more like an open source project, where it's like very to the point, introduction, commands, reference, tutorials, search. That's it, right? And the Docker page seems larger, so that was an interesting change.
Hmm.
I think I prefer the Podman to find things, especially the introduction and some of the tutorials are kind of nice. But it's well documented. I think everything that I face, I was able to resolve it by reading the docs, which we all should do from time to time. But so far so good. They have a new version of 4.0. I don't know enough yet to know what breaks from the 3.x version. It was released earlier this year, and I believe it's something related with networking. But then again, most of the time that I develop in my computer and I'm running a container and things like that, I never worry about networking.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
so that might be something that it is a major version. So I assume there are breaking changes. I just haven't noticed any difference because I'm coming from Docker.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Huh. So I'm gonna have to try this now. I
Yeah,
haven't tried it yet. I'm gonna have to try it.
you should. They have good skills pages. I have a note here. Pages for somebody like me migrating from Docker, and the changes that you can expect. And again, it talks a little bit about the networking, which I don't really I don't really care because I didn't run into any issues there. It has also like somebody that is new to containers, some tutorials are like, hey, I don't know anything about it. So it's not like they tell you, oh, you gotta go and learn a Docker and then come to us. That's they do address that persona. And then it has all those advanced subjects, right, for container experts like networking and all the magic that happens for containers. So it's kind of nice. I do have my blocker was related to Minikube actually. Um,
Hmm.
the way Minikube works, it uses drivers, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
and that includes like VMware VirtualBox,
Right.
Parallels, SSH, Podman, Docker, HyperKit, Hyperbit. I'm looking at all of them. One of them is Podman, right? So I try to do what the instructions were telling me to do. Um, One of it is making sure that the Podman VM starts with 2 CPUs and 2 gigs of RAM and some disk allocated. And everything seemed that it was going to work. Like I was able to all the commands run successfully. But then at some point, I try to connect to it, and I keep getting this error call. It was something like DNS config forming. Search line limits were exceeded. So something was wrong with the DNS from the Minikube cluster to my networking, I guess, or my network interface on Mac, and I just couldn't make it work. I didn't spend more than 30 minutes there because I have a Kubernetes cluster that I could use somewhere else.
Right. Right.
So I wasn't too worried about it, but I couldn't make it work. It could have been um, something related to Podman version 4, which has some networking changes that I understand. Maybe the Minikube release is not supported yet, or it's just the fact that they even in the Minikube side they even said that it is an experimental driver, so um, it's not very reliable. So I hope it gets there. But that was my only blocker that I had to actually use one of my clusters as a backup.
Right. So the blockers on Minikube. Did you try any other type of like Kubernetes setup?
I have Minikube running with Docker before, and it was working.
Right. Okay.
That's the extent of it.
Okay.
The other one that I can try is Minishift, which is the Minikube version of OpenShift.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. That might be interesting to try. I'll give it a go, and I'll report back. It's a
Hmm.
quick follow up. But
So what
that's
do you
it. I
think?
mean,
What do you think? Like Docker, the company, thinks about Podman? Because it's just clearly like, oh, you guys are doing that. We're going to do our own thing then, and it's kind of the bane of certain types of open source for companies, right? Where you build something and the free product's too good, so their commercial offerings aren't. They don't ever. They're always they feel shoehorned in, and so
mhm.
then your really good product, which is open source, when you try to make money off of it or something, someone goes, "Oh, I'll just make something else that's free," and goes completely around you. I don't know. What do you think Docker thinks about that? Have you read anything about it? I haven't.
um, Not much. It is interesting though that Podman is very focused on CRI-O, which is the implementation of Kubernetes runtime interface, a container runtime interface,
Hmm.
with some standards around containers, right? The OCI and the Docker manifest and some of those things, which again, I'm probably talking outside of my comfort zone here.
Hmm.
To my understanding, Kubernetes has always been more compatible with Podman than with Docker, especially on that layer of runtime layer
Right.
or runtime part of it. So I think it's a good player. And I know from working with OpenShift clusters that even in some documentation on Red Hat, they tell me to use Podman as the default or as the standard thing. Um, Outside of that, so I think it's a it's a real player. I don't think it's something that is just out there and it's not getting support from big companies or anything like that. So that being said, Docker is Docker, right? It's the king.
Yeah.
I like their approach. I think it's fair for them to make some money out of Docker desktop for bigger companies. And it's still free for anybody that doesn't reach that level of 250 employees. So I don't think Podman is going to pull a lot of use cases, especially because it's an open source project. It doesn't have a lot of marketing that they can go after Docker users. But I don't know. The fact that we have more than one option for containers, I think it's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah. I agree with that
That's
for
my
sure. Yeah.
that's
Cool.
so if you are if you want to spend some time with it, I think it's going to be fine for you because I know how you use it and some of the people that might be listening to us. Again, we talk about like the need to run containers in our machines for somebody that works in small backends or front ends like you and I. It's not much, but it's good to have a tool that works. So
Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, give it a go.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, that was great. Great friction log. I learned some new things. I'm going to try it. So that's cool. And then next up, I think we'll do something with Turbo Repo and some of these other things that while we're trying to open source our web app.
Yeah, definitely. The frictionlog.com website, we want to open source it as a template for anybody to go and have a blog. I don't know how many of the features of the podcast we'll have up there, but maybe we can add them as optional that you can turn them on and off and some styling. So that's the plan, and some of the things that we talk about at the beginning will help us get there. So I will see you in 2 weeks, and maybe we'll have the good news out there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Cesar. Talk to you later.
Thanks, man. See ya.